a structure analysis in which he did with cons and pros, and I think y'all probably had that for, I don't know, maybe 2, 3 weeks to have some time to look at, maybe a little longer. So what we're here today is to really maybe to get some guidelines on what you would like to see. And with what you would like to see, then we could work on trying to bring back the appropriate language for the LDRs for, final approval at that point, or going through the approval process. So, one of the ones that we seem to, or let me say, I seem to like, and I think I'll let y'all, send to y'all, and I'm not saying we can't, this is not absolute. There's probably some changes and adjustments. Was Levy counties, and what it said was on lots of 5 acres or more in size, accessory uses and structures are allowed prior to principal use of principal structure and may be located anywhere within the yard. On lots less than 5 acres in size, no accessory use or structures are allowed until a principal structure exists on the lot, and the accessory structure must be located in the side yard or rear yard, and each accessory structure must be met requiring setbacks. If we go back in reference to the size, the minimum lot size, unless it's a subdivision, which y'all had to approve through the special use process, would be a 5-acre lot. So our county lots now. So anything else would, if it's we do have some subdivisions, which are 2-acre lots as well. I'm not sure if we really have any of those left that are available, but I do know we have some with 5-acre lots. Some of the other points that we talked about maybe discussing is, a lot of this comes in with people wanting to be able to park their RV under a shed, under a building if they're using it at a river lot, or a lot that's associated with water. And most of those lots are smaller than 5 acres. We may even have some of those that are acre, to 2 acres as well. So that would be something that we need to consider as well. One of the things that we would probably want to regulate and stay with until you have a principal structure, the maximum would be 60 amp of electrical. Of course, that is our standard now. However, if you have a home and you have a barn, you can have 200 amps in either one. So it's not to say it couldn't go to 200 one day if they built a home there or principal structure, but to start off with 200 amps. And then another thing we've talked about, do you want to let one side be closed in, 2 sides, 3 sides, 4 sides? That would be something that we would need to discuss. Because one of the things that's been brought up is some of the people in the river lot areas are like, they would like to have a place to secure their items. And even some of them on the 5-acre or 10-acre lots, they may buy these with the intent of retiring to those lots within this county. So they like to keep a tractor or a mower or something there, so that when they come up on a weekend or for a week or two, that they're able to do work and don't have to shuttle that back and forth. And then the other thing I think we need to determine is how many of these structures would we allow? 1, 2, 3. And that would be something else we probably need to talk about as well. And you guys, y'all as commissioners as well may have some other thoughts as well. This was just some things that I tried to come up with that would kind of get us started and get us thinking. So if we could get the feedback from y'all of how you would like to move forward, we can jot those down, and then we can try to put those into a language and then bring it back. We can even have a second workshop, and then if everybody agrees on that, then we could start the advertising process to make a change to our Land Development Regulation Code, our LDRs. As you see, as you did go through that, you'll see there's a number of counties who do not allow it, and then you have a few counties who do allow it as well. So that is some of the items that we have before us and discuss. When you look at pros and cons, you really have good arguments either way. So I think it's gonna be more of what the commission has heard from our citizens and how you would like to move forward on some of those items and support, what they have asked for as well, so.
Who wants to go first? Well, I'll start with a couple questions. So, accessory buildings, Bobby, I think we're mostly talking about shelters or small storage
Correct.
buildings or something.
Yes.
And the original idea was this, we had heard from quite a few people that maybe had greater than 5 acres, and under the current code, if it was an ag barn, they could build it, but not if it wasn't an ag barn. Is that right?
That is
It has to be
correct.
bona fide ag,
Bona
Yeah.
fide
the
ag.
land.
Right.
And,
So, yes, Lynn.
and one thing I meant to say that, and I'm sorry, anything that we're talking about today in no way affects ag.
Okay.
Ag is a standalone, it's already regulated by the state, so nothing we talk about here today is in relationship to ag at all. So ag will not change, it'll stay the way it is.
Yeah. So I mean, I just want to say I appreciate Brandon and you and others who worked on it, putting together what you got and the examples you got from other counties, and I think that's real helpful for us. And I would support doing something like Levy County and greater than 5 acres, maybe. Now, as far as the river lots, the smaller ones, I mean, I kind of like to see, even those folks that are paying taxes here, I think it was Columbia County or Swanee County, allowed accessory building on those type lots if they had a primary residence somewhere else. And so I don't know if that's something we could do. I don't know if that, I don't remember if that was in there, Brandon, or not, but.
Brandon Stokes, Northwest Professional Services. So Columbia County, they have basically anything that's designated as ag, they allow accessory structures, which their ag, like y'all have like an A1 district which allows for 2 acre lots, but in Columbia, their ag is 5 acres and up, so theirs is 5, 10, 20, and 40. So they're kind of the same way Levy County is. They may not be worded the same, but everything ag. But the ESA is treated differently. So if it's a river lot, they still kind of allow those accessory structures. But the problem that you're going to have on most river lots is now you're getting into what's called the NFPA requirement, or the ASC 24 requirements. And those are state requirements. And so state now is incorporating building code that if you're along a river or flooding area and you're in certain areas, you can only have 100 square foot of storage. That means with that principal dwelling now, you can only have 100 square foot below the base flood elevation that is enclosed square footage. Now, that may not apply to pole barns, so you might be able to get away with, if you have a river lot, putting a pole barn to put your camper under. But when it comes to like actually enclosed area, there's going to be building code regulations that's going to say you can't. So more than likely, the best situation you're going to get on a river lot, if it's in a regulatory floodway and stuff, is an open pole barn structure, because they're not going to allow you in the building code to build anything else.
They don't want to impede the flow of water. Yeah.
And so the only way you would be able to build that 100 square foot is an accessory use under the guidelines of, typically flood vents, breakaway walls, and all that kind of stuff that you have to engineer. Honestly, a 10 by 10 structure ain't gonna do anything.
But a shelter is still going to help. Somebody's got a temporary camper.
Yeah, if we're building a pole barn, again, very minimal impact to floodway, so they could easily do something like that and put it already under provide protection, pull it out.
I'd like to be able to see people put structures on anything that's 5 acres or larger. I have no problem with that. And then like you said, if they have a lot on the river and they wanna build a pole barn to put their camper under when they come, or to store some things under, I don't have a big problem with that either. I don't wanna see these pole barns being converted into houses though. That's my concern is, oh, I got a pole barn now, let me throw some sides up and run poles out there and we'll have a place we can sleep on weekends, and now you run into that building code problem with more than 100 square feet that's enclosed, and but I guess we can't control that if we,
Well, the biggest way to control that is pole barns, especially if it's in a, ESA area. You could say are eligible for receive power. If they don't have power, they're definitely not building a house out of it. And now they might be able to get 60 amp power for a temporary RV permit, but that would be for the RV, not for the actual, and that would only be 60 amps, which they're not running anything in the house off a 60 amp pole. If they try to mess with that, power company comes to the county or, the city or,
well, I lived down where I lived on for years and years down by the river, and it was nice. People would come down, they had a place they could put things under and keep them out of the weather, and then if the river ever came up, while you were seeing them all there picking everything up, trying to get it all out of the way. And I know it was convenient for them to be able to have some type of shelter down there other than a main house. I just, my concern is them taking the structure and trying to do more with it.
I've seen a lot of people now, especially within regulatory floodways or people that have, homes along the coast, because of the stringent requirements now, they actually just go buy themselves like a 24-foot covered trailer. So they can buy a covered trailer for the same price they can build something, and they keep everything in that covered trailer, so when the storms come, they just hook that trailer up and haul it out.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about the permitting, all the harassment from the, building it within the floodway or, velocity zones and all that. So, there are other ways to kind of tackle that, with like covered trailers and stuff, but certainly, like you said, like a pole barn, there's little to no impact from a pole barn. Even if it does flood, because those poles, they just allow all the water, everything to run out under it. So,
Most of what I've encountered is people buy a piece of property, vacant land, and they wanna come up and clean it up. And they wanna put a structure on there of some type so that they don't have to bring their lawnmower every time, or their equipment, their chainsaws and all that kind of stuff. They just need a place to store it until they get something permanently built.
yeah,
And
they get a lot of
like I said, I don't have a problem with that. Even on the river, if they were allowed to, you bought a river lot, and you're in there cleaning it up, prepping it, getting it ready, and you wanted to put up one of those little 10x10s or something like that, just to put everything in so you didn't fall it back into, would be very convenient for them. Of course, there again, if you fall under the state guidelines, under certain sizes and stuff like that, they would have to deal with that. But I don't know, I struggle with, if you own the land, I don't like everybody tell me what I can do with it, what I can't do with it. That's where I struggle at.
And there's certainly like a big difference between an area where you have 5, 10, 20, 40 acre lots, versus like a half acre lot in a subdivision. I mean, let's face it, whether we want to admit it or not, that there's a big difference between a 20 by 30 barn on a 5 acre tract than if it's in the middle of a subdivision with a half acre lot.
And having a pole barn on the river, to me, is not really a bad idea to park your RV on there, because it's like at Swanee-town, right now, they're rebuilding. But if you don't want to rebuild your house, your structure, then you put up a pole barn, you park your RV on it, and they say there's a hurricane coming, you go get it and you bring it home. And they could do the same thing on the river. It'd be very convenient for them to do that, rather than build a permanent structure.
I definitely agree with y'all. I mean, there's certain circumstances where accessory structures should be permitted and allowed,
Brandon, do Levy or Columbia County make any differential between river lots and the 5 acre minimum?
I did not see anything on Levy County, that Levy County is 5 acres up. Now, Columbia County, like I said, they do allow within their ESA districts, because most of their ESA districts are 10 acres or greater anyways, as far as the size of the lot. But they do allow those on, some of the river lots or whatever, but it's not really that huge of an issue that I've ever seen. I mean, I worked there for 8 years doing that, and, we didn't really see a whole bunch of them, to be honest with you, not unless there was already a structure there. The main places we actually saw where people were wanting to put an accessory structure on a vacant lot, in the river would be like, Three Rivers Estates, there's so many people that have interior lots that are not in the flood zone. A lot of them, they don't stay, they don't live down there. They get temporary RVs, so they want a shed that, like I said, keeps stuff down there, lawn equipment and all this other stuff. So they're usually the ones we had to worry about wanting to get permits for, like accessory, sheds and stuff, so they could keep stuff down there. So in the summer, when they came with their RV and stayed during the summer, they could have a place to store stuff.
And even if we, Bobby mentioned the 60 amp pole would be the maximum, that's not a bad idea either, because, it would be hard for them to turn level quarters in it with the 60 amps of electricity. And we even do that on our land out here when people put up a temporary, pole for, to build a house or something. So that would be consistent with that. But it's just that everybody, I don't know, different people fit in different categories, and some people can afford whatever it calls for, and some people struggle to get by. And if you can afford a lot and you want to put even when I bought my property over there, if I could have put a little house up, to put all my stuff in while I'm working over there 5 or 6 years until I build or move over there, it would be convenient for me to do that. And I don't know what the issue would be, what it would hurt or harm to anybody.
Yeah.
I'd rather do that.
Well, I think there's some reason that all these counties have not allowed it. So there must have been issues with it in the past. I don't have an issue either way, to be honest with you, but the only thing I would say, and I think Brandon will agree with this, and probably Mr. Stockman as well, is the enforcement and regulation of this. You have to restrict it to 60 amp. You have to know what's being put there. I don't know if that encompasses taking a photograph and putting it in as part of the file, because we have experienced that over the years here, where when it gets permitted and you go away and you come back, now the people are living in it. Yeah. And I don't know if you've got a big enough staff to keep up with all of those, unless you have some kind of tickler system in your computer system at the building department that can look at this like you look at your RVs every year, about renewing your permit. Because you go back 5 years later, there might be a family living in it, and you didn't know that.
And that is the drawback. That is the number one reason why local governments, but it's a catch-22. It's like, do you get punished before you break the law, or do you get punished once you break the law? So that's kind of that scenario. If I build a barn and I'm telling you I'm building a barn and I convert that into a home, I'm not technically guilty of anything until I build that home. But it's like if you walk past the store, if you go in and pay for it, well, okay, you pay for your items, but walk in and steal it. But you prohibit people from walking in the store because they might steal them.
But Mr. Stockman and I have seen people living in sheds. When they've gone in a handy house shed and put in a bedroom, a stove,
That's what I was talking is people putting structures up and then moving into them.
I've seen a lot worse, but yeah, I mean, you can't stop that. I've been out to places and, you go out there and there'll be 5, like I said, handy house, type little 10 by 20 sheds out there, and there'll be families five different families living out there in the sheds, and, you know.
And then it becomes dangerous, you know, we've had that life safety issues with that.
Yeah, I mean, and you're scratching your head going, wow, I'm about to displace five families, but what do you do when this person owns the property and has a house on the property, is renting to these people and collecting all this money off of them and providing, safe conditions for them to live in, so.
Well, I think what we're talking about too is, and I agree with what you're talking about, we have those issues now.
Yeah.
That's not new. I think what we're trying to do here is help the people who want to do it the right way. The ones who don't go do it, because the ones that are gonna do it wrong, they're not gonna come ask you for a permit, no way. They're just gonna
They're
try
just
to
gonna
figure
go
out how
out
to
and
do
do
it without it, or they're, you know, if they can figure out how to do it, that they'll do it, or they'll buy a piece of property that the power's already on, and they'll say, hey, don't turn the power off, just let me go get it switched to my name. I mean, we find these, sometimes weekly, but, you know, we had one person stand up in one of our meetings, I don't remember what it was, but I just remember the comment is, and I think we all agree with this, are we helping, or are we punishing the people who want to do it the right way? And that's in everything, it's not just this. And either way y'all go is fine with me, but, you know, what I think what I've seen is y'all want to try to help the people who, want to do it right, because a lot of these people who come in and want this type of shed, that's willing to invest this type of money, their whole intentions is to build a homestead there, you know, and to live there when they're doing it the right way, because, you know, if they've got to put in a septic tank, they look at the placement of the septic tank so it can be used for their house, not the RV. You know, they're looking at different type things, and, will somebody probably come do this and break the rules? Absolutely. Is some of the people that's out there now gonna keep doing it without a permit, even if you make it a little easier? Absolutely. So it's kind of like, to me, do you want to try to help the people who want to do it the correct way? You know, we've got some people I know that's came in and asked us, and they got 20 acres, and they try to have a few cows or trying to get it there, and they don't live here, and they're like, just let me put something up, I can secure my equipment, or, you know, they may not even have an
But they don't
RV.
have an ag category,
But they don't have an ag category, so, you know.
a bona fide ag use.
Or you've got somebody that just wants to be able to store their stuff on a lot while they're working on the engineering and the design for their home, which may take 6-7 months, and instead of going down and, you know, paying a rental fee or something. So I think the people we're trying to help here, really and truthfully, are the ones who are going to do it the correct way and the right way, because the ones who are going to do it the wrong way, they're already doing it, they're going to keep doing it. We've got people we've caught and turned it around, and 3 years later, you catch them again doing something somewhere else. So they just move from spot to spot.
Would you limit the size of the structure then?
So, well, I think you may want to when it comes to your river lots, or maybe not necessarily based it on river lots, but base that anything 5 acres and above, you might not have a limit on the size, okay? But if it's 2 acres or smaller, you may want to put a little bit of criteria there. But it's sounding like most of the requests for the small acreage are in the low-lying areas or river areas. And so it sounds like we may need to do some homework before we write our LDRs to make sure it matches any building codes that might be affected by environmental sensitive land, flood lands, and get that language in here. And that we can do.
If you've got 20 acres or 40 acres and you want to put a structure out there, you probably don't have just a lawnmower and a weed eater. But if you're on a river lot, you're very limited of the kind of equipment you're gonna have to start with. I mean, you won't put a big tractor under a shed with a clean, yeah, you could, but I think we're talking about river lots, which are subject to flood versus bigger tracts of land, which are probably not subject to flood, like 20 acres or 40 acres.
Yeah, I think one way to tackle what y'all are trying to do, would be to not only identify the acreage, but identify the zone district. So accessory uses or structures are permitted in, these zone districts on acres five, or on lots 5 acres or greater. And then lots within, let's say, the ESA district, may have accessory structures if they meet A, B, and C or something like that. That way,
They meet the setbacks.
correct.
Yeah.
And so that way we could kind of control, if it's less than 5 acres in the ESA district, we'll have a little bit of control. You could say, maximum square footage is 5,000 square foot, or, shall be limited to 5,000 square foot. If it's within a regulatory floodplain, it cannot be enclosed, there must be an open, barn structure, that kind of stuff. That way you don't have to worry about getting into, the building code requirements of a 10 by 10, it's just, hey, enclosure is not permissible if you're in a regulatory floodway. If you're outside the floodway, that's fine. I mean, if you have half your lots in a floodway, half of it's out, you wanna do what's on the part of the
Building codes apply to any building being built, whether it's on 5 acres or not, unless it's an ag building, you're still under the same permitting. I mean, it's permitting and the building inspector's gonna come out, so,
Yeah.
So that type of thing, so, yeah.
Yeah, and that way, it's clear up front, it's kind of a mimic of what's in the code in the ASCE 24, without having to go to reference code and all that. It's just a roundabout where you can incorporate these standards. That way, when they're looking in the code, it's all in one place. They're not going to the building code, they're going to a separate document, and it makes it easier on the person rather than having that. It's so convoluted, because when you're trying to speak to somebody, and they may not be fluent in, all these different building codes and, American Standards for, construction engineering and all this other floodplain management, having one source versus 3 or 4 sources can make a huge difference in explaining the code to them.
Well, Baker County says Baker County allows accessory uses and structures without a principal use and structure, as long as they comply with a use-specific standard for the particular accessory use of the structure. In other words, you're defining that as saying, if you're gonna use this as a little storage building for your equipment, that's what you gotta do with it.
Correct.
Seems like they would have to write that on the application also,
It probably would have to be.
And
what they're gonna
typically,
use it for.
they do, whether it's a barn or a shed or whatever.
Yeah.
That's how typically you get them whenever they convert a barn into a residence. Well, you permitted this as a barn.
Now you're living
Barn,
in it, so
yeah, you don't live in a
you're not-
barn unless you're an animal,
Jesus.
Hey,
You live there, then you're born there.
Bobby, related to, so if somebody permitted for a barn or accessory building and then later converted it to something not living in it, what is the enforcement, the penalty for that, if they're called?
Well, basically, you'd have a code enforcement violation. One thing that can be done is the power can be disconnected, because if they permit it as a barn, in that permit, it says that it is to be used for what it's supposed to be used for. So at that point, if the building official or code enforcement agent finds that they're living in the home, then the power can be disconnected. Give them a notice and you disconnect the power. Most people aren't gonna stay in a home without power, if you go out a little bit further, you wind up doing a code violation if they don't make the corrections. Then at that point, it goes before the magistrate, and they can be fined up to $250 a day. But I think, and Mr. Stockman can come up or just nod his head, normally if he finds somebody living in a structure that is not permitted for a resident and it has power, then we do a power disconnect. Is that correct? You're gonna have to come up if you're gonna talk.
Yeah, if he red flags it.
They're on the deal with somebody moving into it after they permitted it as a shed, so if the people that I think has, then we'll probably cut the power off fairly quickly. To get a case open either way, with code enforcement, and, typically when that goes out and they know that we're gonna cut the power, they'll either bring it into compliance with it by either, getting the engineer, getting it permitted and inspected to be a house, or get everything out of it, call code enforcement, so they need to go back to like the history. So there's a process there for it. I think that you mentioned like the people can build an ag barn and they can come back later and convert it to a house, but they gotta go through the whole process to get the engineering for this category two, for this category one story. And then we've got to backtrack and do the foundation, all that, so it can be done, but it's a lot harder to do after, concrete poured after.
Well, I'd like to be able to see people put structures on their buildings, but I would like to see some regulations put on if it's 5 acres or more. You're not limited to the size. If you're less than 5 acres, then there's a size limit, and if you're in a floodplain area, then there's even another limit that goes with that because it can't be enclosed and I mean, you were talking about what they were doing in some different places, and I thought that makes a lot of sense, so.
Very site specific.
Right, site specific. But I'm not wanting to limit people who have less than 5 acres to not be, put an accessory building out there. I'd like them to be able to do it. And then people that live by the river I'd like for them to be able to do it, but it needs to be, I think there needs to be some regulations on that as far as how big it's gonna be, and of course, then you've got all the other regulations about it not being able to be closed in and stuff, so.
So with less than 5 acres now, if somebody is committed to building and they apply for that and you have plans and we allow them time and can they build something now if they have all that?
Once they have an active building permit, and that doesn't mean they're actually building, that means that they've came in, it's been reviewed, it's been approved, and a permit has been issued, then they are allowed to permit an accessory building to build on that property once they have the permit approved. So, but you would have to have, and what happens sometimes in those situations, you can get, pole barns are pre-designed. I mean, that you can call and get one, a homemade. At one time, it was taking 12 to 18 months just to get design and engineering for a home. Now that's a lot less now, and then sometimes that gets delayed just because people choosing what they want, how they want it, making changes. But once you have an active permit, yes, you can. So.
Okay, so that would kind of cover the less than 5 acres if they're gonna build.
If they're going to build, most of your acreage is less than 5 acres. I'm not gonna say it's all this way. You've either approved it as residential, or either it's a environmental sensitive type land. It's around the rivers or something, unless it's just old lots, but yes, I think to answer your question.
But if we allowed accessory building without the application and the plan to build a primary residence, you're really opening it up, aren't you, to lots of potential.
To what?
Have an accessory building on something less than 5 acres without the application and the plan to build a primary residence.
I think if I did anything that was less than 5 acres, it would be tied to what I would classify as kind of a recreational lot that's on a river, on a water, because I know there's a lot of those that are 1 acre to 2 acres, and that's the only ones. I think if it was just your regular ag land and less than 5 acres, I would wait until someone was actually putting a primary structure, because truthfully, and Brandon, please correct me if I'm wrong, if you got agriculture land and you come in with 4 acres and your zone, I think it's A2, and it's 5 acres or more, you can't, your lot's not even conforming. You can't get the zoning to build a home on that, under our current zoning. Is that correct?
not unless it's a legal non-conforming,
Right.
which would mean that it would have to be created prior to the zoning, which is
And that would have to come
February
to y'all.
1st, 1993.
1993. I don't have a problem with a person, if they wanted to put up a pole barn to put their RV under. A lot of people own from riverfront property, but they don't live here, or they don't intend to live here. But they may bring their RV for the weekend, and they protect their investment from the environment. Even if they didn't take it home with them, they could leave it there till they come back. There's a lot of people that does that, a lot of people. A pole barn's not gonna restrict the flow of the water as long as it's not closed in and stuff like that. So I don't really have an issue like that. But then, again, if somebody has, as Bobby mentioned, they got 4 acres over here in the middle of the county, they can't build on it. The only thing they could possibly use it for is a weekend getaway or something, and park an RV on it and stay the weekend and go back home. I mean, I don't know, there's some properties out there that can't be used for anything but that, because they're not in compliance.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you're dealing with that, say if it's a non-conformity, but not a legal non-conformity, we wouldn't legally be able to issue them any kind of permit, because if we do, now we're saying that you're eligible for permitting, and so if we issued them a permit for a barn, then now we would have to issue them a permit for a dwelling. So you get into a very touchy situation with those kinds of things. If you knowingly grant a permit on a lot that's a non-conforming lot, not a legal non-conforming, but just a non-conforming lot that doesn't meet the criteria for a building permit. In fact, the code is very specific on legal non-conforming lots. It says only a single-family dwelling and customary accessory structures. So even on those lots that are legal non-conforming, you can even apply for a special use permit or anything like that, because it only allows for them to be utilized for residential purposes.
Well, just to kind of recap real quick, because I know we were gonna try to quit at about
Yeah,
quarter till.
I wanna ask for public input.
Okay.
Go ahead, though.
What I was saying is, basically, it seems like everybody's agreeable, 5 acres or more. Let's try to come up with a way to have, to be able to allow that, a structure without, an accessory structure without a primary residence. Oh, yes. And then on the smaller acreage, we need to kind of do a little bit of homework based on the zoning and the environmental sensitive residential, and do a little homework there, and maybe bring back some recommendations. Of course, we need to review the building code based on some of the floodplain areas to see what is and is not allowed by building code. Of course, we can identify that acreage and zoning, for the size of the building based on the acreage size and zoning, maybe recommend the size of a building. And then I think everybody pretty much agrees, as long as there's not a primary residence there at this point, the power should be capped at 60.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's kind of the points I've got that we can go back and work on and put together, put some language and send out to everyone, so y'all would be able to review that and then make any comments back in case we missed something. That sound pretty much right?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask for public comment. Anybody from the public wanna speak? You'll have to come up and state your name for the record.
Trip Northleaf, live on the east side of the county. I had a comment that's a little bit of a different subject, but on the planning use, one of the things I was, and don't know what all y'all are looking at today, but one of the things I'd like for y'all maybe to consider is, these 5-acre tracts. Say you got 100 acres and you're gonna cut it up in, 5-acre tracts. You can get 20 units to the 100 acres. And I know in some other counties, they do clustering, where you can do 1.5 to 2-acre lots. And if you got that 100-acre parcel, you still only get 20 units. And then you have to set the other 60 aside, or 65, or whatever it is, or 50 acres aside. And, I think it would be beneficial for the homeowner, to be able to afford it a little bit better, put nicer homes and keep it cleaner. I think for the county, you'd have less roads to maintain. And then on the agriculture side, because we build and we're in agriculture, you could set that other land aside and keep it in the hayfield or put it in pines. And, you know, you'd have that natural look. You know, a lot of people think that the 5-acre tract keeps it agricultural, but, you know, it just seems like it just spreads the houses out everywhere. And I didn't know if y'all be, you know, I know a couple other counties around, allow that. And, you know, one of the pieces of property that I bought 10 years ago, and I don't know the name of the road, it's the Pawpaw Road. Some of that,
Southeast
yeah,
yeah.
some of that old Martin property. You know, I've got about 120 acres there. I always wanted to cut it up, but we got it in hayfield. And I paid the price to develop it, but I'd love to keep part of it as a hayfield. You know what I mean? And then they could put nice homes in there. And I think it would be, like I said, something really beneficial for the county, because you'd have a lot fewer, you'd have more taxpayers on linear foot of road, you know, and it costs us less to put it in, keep y'all less to put it in, but just, I don't know if this is the right time to mention that, but I was just kind of wanting to maybe see what y'all's thoughts were on that.
And there's a need for that, because I hear people say a lot of times, they don't want 5 acres, they don't need 5 acres, they don't wanna maintain 5 acres, if they could just get a quarter of an acre, a half acre. So if you did some clustering, that would solve, as long as you put some in conservation around it, like you said.
But would the conservation be part of the, subdivision also?
Yeah. You just
And
have
then-
to stay in
And
conservation.
then, like you said, there would be no more land rights to be off that. The only thing it'd be good for is, you know.
I hear a lot of people say though, that they just don't want 5 acres. They don't want
I'm
5
not
acres.
sure that's not already in the code. That's been discussed before, especially out in the Waukesha Flats area, like with the Swanee Lake Plantation people, about all those thousands of acres they've got to bring things up near the resort area. But it wipes out the use of the rest of the property when they do what you're talking about there. That was either a conceptual thing, Trip, or it's in the code. I'm just not sure. I can't answer that. And Brandon's raised his hand. Yes,
You need to come to the
You're gonna
podium.
have to come
to
up
the
to the
podium.
podium to speak if you're going to, sorry.
I thought there was something in there already.
Brandon Stoves, North Florida Professional Services. There is a PRD section in the code that allows for clustering, but on top of that, the minimum lot size for a PRD, is unfortunately 5 acres. So under the section, 3.02.04 development standards for PRD, minimum parcel size for planned residential development shall be of 5 acres. So, I mean, honestly, you got the mechanism if y'all wanted to change it to allow a minimum 1 acre. Usually, what I've found with other cities and counties that have PRD standards is in like agricultural districts will allow for a minimum of 1 acre or maybe 2 acres, depending on, the jurisdiction. But usually the minimum would be 1 acre, size.
Yeah, I like the idea of, trying to keep our green space and our ag land, and with 5 acre breakups, that's not encouraging that, I don't think. I
No,
understand
sure.
why the original idea was, but I like the idea, Trip, and I think we ought to consider. I'm seeing Gene shake his head, and, so maybe that's something maybe it's already in there. What could we do to encourage it, incentivize it? Is there something?
You probably have, you're gonna have to have another workshop, kick it all around, get
Okay.
public comment, get
Right.
these developers in, like Mr. Norfleet, and kind of get their ideas, and then turn it back over to Brandon to try to see, and he would, if you set up another workshop, he'll know 100% what is allowed in that code. And PRD, speaking of,
We did allow clustering on that,
yeah.
Gilchrist Club out there.
Well, Bobby and I have had meetings several times with that group of owners,
It was A6, and it's one dwelling for 160 acres.
but they were
What
saying
they
how many
did is they
thousands
put
of
in
acres they've
8
got, they'd like to bring them all in on 5 acre tracts, and then neutralize the remainder.
Yep, they started.
Amber alert.
What, if the board agrees, what I'd like to do, if Mr. Norfleet would agree, I'd like to set up a time that him and I and, Brandon, and if Mr. Lang wants to attend as well, kind of sit down and see what he'd like to do. And let's use that piece of property sort of as an example, kind of to talk about and see what those acreage numbers are, and then what we'd like to propose, and then maybe kind of get something together, and then we'll set up a workshop. And anything we talk about or do can, as you say, all can be changed, but kind of get some direction on kind of like how, I know he does a lot of developing, so he probably sees what a lot of other people are liking to do or trying to do as well too. So, if he's willing to do that, we'll reach out and we'll set up a meeting and we'll try to talk with him, and then we'll try to set up another workshop to talk about that. Would that work good for you, Mr. Oakley? Okay.
Okay, any more public comment? Steve, did you have something? Okay.
Steve Gladden from Waters Lake. But as to my recollection, your existing code allows for planned unit developments where you can average out the requirement for 5 acres and have smaller lots, and the rest of it is dedicated.
Going back to your stuff out here, you talk about the workarounds, people are gonna be, get around it and all that. Well, some of these development things are looking the same way. I mean, I err on the side of caution when it comes to some of these proposals and get maybe a wider range of input. Commissioner Smith, I think you're well aware of the property that he's referring to, and I love Tripp to death, but it's in a Quality Springs focus area, correct? Water use caution area. And also it's in that Jenny Gilchrist Blue RFA restoration focus area. So when you start clumping stuff together that's not already permitted or in there, and they're just better places in the county, and I don't want to pick on him, because he's looking at visitors, but they're just better places in the county to kind of look at some of these things. When we talk about environmentally sensitive lands, up on the rivers and stuff, should be any structures on that, in my opinion. I don't care who owns it. But, you could, where's that logo right up there? That says what Gilchrist County is supposed to be about, preservation of our people. And you can just look at these spec houses that are going up on the already permitted subdivisions from the 70s and the 80s. There's one out in the city of Bell. I rode through Sun and Fun pretty regular. These gentlemen that went out there and during the road closure issue that we had back in the fall, we looked at those spec houses there. There's around 100 there already that developers put right there on top of that environment. I mean, spring shed. That's a recharge area. You got septic tanks and wells on half-acre, quarter-acre lots. And I just asked the commission to, before they reach out and start doing any further stuff, to maybe fill in what's already permitted. And if he wants to own the 5 acres, I mean, they're all over the county now. I mean, there's not that many left that aren't. And these big farms that are being, people are dying, people inherit it, they're going up for sale. Ag people can't afford it. They're going to eventually get there. And one of the parcels he's referring to, the natural gas line and the transmission line that goes through your place there,
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
goes right through in the middle of that 80 acres. So it's pretty much undeveloped. And if y'all do consider something like that, I would ask to be a perpetual conservation easement required on the rest of it, in perpetuity.
Yeah.
To do that. There's workarounds, and I'm not picking on here, I love him, like I say. But there's a lot of folks that aren't as ethical as he is that are developing in our county. I hope y'all will be aware of that. Just be cautious.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Okay. Nothing else? We're gonna take a break, and we have a board meeting at 4 o'clock.
Thank you.